everyone. Something I have been reflecting on as it's been coming up a lot in sessions I've been having with families, especially recently, is the concept of incongruence. So incongruence is just a really fancy way of saying an internal felt sense of this is weird. A concrete sort of example to help it make sense is, for example, a child walks into a room, sees their caregiver crying or upset in some way. Kid asks, "What's wrong?" Caregiver says, "Nothing, I'm fine." The child has the internal sensation of, oh, something is wrong, but then their trusted caregiver and support provider is saying things are fine. That sort of doesn't add up, and it can create sort of a state of dysregulation in children, especially. Sometimes kids will push. Sometimes they'll say, "Well, why are you crying? I can see you're crying." And sometimes parents will push back to say, "I'm fine, don't worry about it." Sometimes kids will hold that sense of incongruence inside of them, and they'll just sort of back up and accept the parent's response for what it is. Meanwhile, that feeling of this doesn't add up still is inside of them. Parents, in all of their positive intention, are really trying to protect their kids in those moments. They don't want their children to worry about them. They don't want their kids to have added stress or added worries. And so parents kind of put up this block and say, things are fine, I'm fine, it's okay. However, kids have the internal felt sense of this is not okay. They have that incongruence. And part of our job as parents is really to support kids in making sense of scary, stressful, sad, worrisome things. So if we ignore it, if we push it away, even from our own experience as adults, then it tells kids that those things are too scary, those things are too big, we don't talk about those, we don't settle on those, we don't feel those things. Different kids have different ways of interpreting that message, but essentially it comes across loud and clear of it's not okay to have that feeling in some way. Parents' job, as I was saying, is to provide kids with an understanding and a realization that sometimes things don't go the way we want it to go, and sometimes that leads to feelings of disappointment or sadness or worry or stress or whatever that might be. But we can handle that feeling. We can be okay with that feeling. We can be with the children in that feeling. And sometimes what that means is being with ourselves in that feeling. So when we have this stressed out feeling, acknowledging that feeling inside of us to say, oh man, I'm feeling really at the end of my rope, I'm feeling really stressed out, whatever it might be inside of us. And acknowledging that, I think somebody said before, name it to tame it, and that's a really good phrase from Dan Siegel, and to reduce the power that it has. So when we do that, what it does is it pulls the energy away from our limbic system, away from the emotion part of our brain, and shifts it towards the cognitive thinking part of our brain. That's where language kind of comes from. And so it pulls power from one part of the brain and adds it to another part of the brain. When our thinking part of our brain is a little bit more online, then we're able to engage with each other. We're able to connect on a social level. It doesn't result in us becoming totally dysregulated in any way. So if we can name it inside of ourselves, and then if we can name that out loud for our kids to say, mommy is feeling really stressed out right now, or daddy is feeling really stressed out right now. And then what that does is it gives the children language, or it gives the children, oh, okay, things are not okay, but mom can talk about it, or things are not okay, but dad can talk about it. And if we can talk about it, then we can figure it out, or we can deal with it, or we can make a plan, something like that. So just in the act of naming it out loud for children and recognizing, yes, I'm having this feeling, yes, I'm not feeling okay right now, reduces that incongruence in children's experiences. So it reduces the anxiety, it reduces the feeling of insecurity or instability. It adds to their sense of safety. When there is more congruence in their environment and in their internal experience, it makes it easier for them to deal with whatever it is. So if we say it out loud, and if we give them the context to say, mom is stressed, dad is stressed, I'm feeling overwhelmed, that in and of itself helps kids manage the experience of incongruency. It's a really simple thing, but it takes a lot of work because, again, generally a parent's first instinct is to say, oh, I don't want my kid to feel or to know that I'm feeling upset, or I don't want my child to see that part of me. But kids feel it. Kids feel it. So even if you shut the door and if you're having a cry on your own, kids feel it. And when we can put words to it, then it helps kids recognize. It helps reduce that incongruency, which helps reduce the stress for children. It's such an important thing, but it takes a lot of practice and a lot of compassion for yourself to say it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be stressed out as a mom. I don't always have to be perfect, or I don't always have to present as perfect. And just in doing that, that is enough for kids. Just in being able to say, I'm your mom and sometimes I make mistakes, that is enough for kids a lot of the time. Because then it really normalizes their own experiences as well, to say, oh, when we make mistakes, it's okay. We can still be with each other. We can still be close to each other, and that's okay. Just a thought I had for today in terms of that experience of incongruence and how I've really been seeing it impacting families and especially children, most recently with the whole COVID-19 issues. Thanks. Take care.